first item on the agenda is public comment. So no one has signed up. Is there anyone who wanted to sign up? Okay. Our next item is approval of Board of Education minutes. We have, should we do them one at a time? Okay. So we have the August 25th, 2021 minutes.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
First by Ilda, a second by Katina. Any comments on the minutes? Okay, all in favor of accepting the minutes? Aye. Do we need to do? Then we have September 10th to 11th, the board retreat minutes. Do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Paula moved, second by Katina. Any comments or discussion? All in favor? Okay, those passed unanimously. And for September 22nd,
So moved.
are the workshop minutes, and thank you, Brendan moved to accept them. Is there a second?
Second.
From Paula Haney. Is there any are there any comments?
I have to abstain. I didn't attend that meeting.
Okay. So we have all in favor of the minutes? So we have one abstention. The rest are accepted. Okay, and our next item is the superintendent's reports.
Good evening, everyone. Okay, we're going to start off with a few celebrations. First of all, I'd like to thank all the principals and directors who were able to come tonight, so I appreciate them being here. I specifically asked the principals if they were able to come, to be available should there be questions when we get to the data that we're going to present tonight. I don't know if that's going to actually happen because Neil and I were discussing you may need some time to sort of think about the data, and more things may come up before we actually have those in-depth discussions, but just in case, they're here, so thank you, everyone. Okay, so one of the celebrations, I guess, is that we completed our first full day of professional development on October 8th. We had a variety of offerings for our certified and non-certified staff. We actually opened up for our non-certified staff an opportunity for them to go through project-based learning, what they call the one-day slice PD, so that they have an idea of what project-based learning means if you're not actually implementing it in a classroom directly. So we're happy about that. We continue to be happy with our family liaisons and the Department of Family and Community Partnerships for their collaboration with the town. They joined in the VAXPO, which I know had been mentioned before, but they've been very good about connecting with the town in support of the community. Also want to celebrate the Willimantic Public Library has been awarded a grant called NASA at My Library. And they have reached out to Natchog School and Eastern Connecticut State University and have given a grant amount of $1,600 that they will be using. The James Webb Space Telescope will be the largest, most powerful, and complex space telescope ever built and launched into space. The grant will provide training, for training, resources, and access to experts. So we're looking forward to Natchog School taking advantage of that grant with the Windham Public Library. And finally, we have an Athlete of the Week. Sienna Ortiz was chosen as Athlete of the Week by the Chronicle for the week of September 22nd. She plays soccer and has kicked off the season by scoring 11 goals and 4 assists in a recent win against Windham Tech. So go Sienna. All right, in terms of the COVID update, I actually just gave each board member a single document, looks like this. Has all the latest information on where we are with COVID and where we are with the Executive Order 13G. So you can see at the top of the page, we currently have 62 students in either quarantine or isolation and 2 staff members. We have the team, COVID team has resolved 48 student cases. Oh, you know what, that's opposite. It should be they've resolved 370 student cases and 48 staff cases. I apologize. I do that almost every time, and I don't catch it until I say it out loud to all of you. So I apologize. Those should be reversed. Positive cases, we've had 33 students who have tested positive for COVID since August 26th and 14 staff members. The town of Windham is currently in the orange category, which is an improvement from being in the red category, with 14.5 cases per 100,000. Windham Public Schools continues to maintain its daily COVID dashboard, so you can go to our website and see this information at any time. We push out the alerts for positive cases that impact the learning environment. Our school nurses continue to do the contact tracing protocols. And one of the things I'm happy to report is even with the Delta variant, we are not seeing transmission in our classrooms and our schools. We see it continue to pass through families and households, but not in our schools, which is a wonderful thing. So let's hope that stays like that. But we are still following contact tracing, which is why we have so many students in quarantine or isolation. They just don't seem to test positive unless someone in their family or household is positive. That seems to be the link. Okay, in terms of Executive Order 13G, I want to thank HR, Stephanie Garrett, for the work that she's been doing over the weekends to make sure the district is in compliance with this new executive order. This is the executive order that mandates all pre-K to 12 staff either be fully vaccinated or take part in the weekly testing. So this week we had 87.3% of the staff members have proven to us they're fully vaccinated, which is wonderful, which left 96 employees who need to comply with the weekly testing mandate. Of those 96, 74 did indeed comply, meaning that there were 22 staff members who did not comply and could not come to work on Tuesday, October 12th. By today, we got the number, the 22 down to 17 employees who are still not compliant. Just so the board members all know, when a staff member is not compliant with this mandate, it is an unpaid leave. You probably have heard about it on the television with the governor dealing with the state employees. It's the same process that's being applied to the school system. And repeated failure to meet with the weekly testing compliance could lead to employee discipline and could lead to termination. So I just want to make the board aware that I'll be giving you a report each week on where we are. But I am very pleased that our fully vaccinated rate is close to 90%. That's really wonderful. So I don't know if there's any questions on COVID or 13G.
I would like to know, the age. I'm so sorry. Thank you, Tracy. Yeah, like to know the age group that those 33 students are who are positive, if at all possible. Like, are they the little ones, the older ones? Is it equally distributed through the school system?
I can pull the data. I can tell you just knowing from the alerts that we pushed out, we've had cases here or there in all different schools, elementary, middle, and high school. So I'm going to guess that the data says they're all over, but I will get it for you. We certainly have it.
Do we have any information about 12 and older? How many are vaccinated?
We've been gathering it as it comes up and asking, families to give us that information. They're not required to do that. And it's not a mandated vaccination, so it's sort of that, sort of hard to navigate, but we are gathering as much information as they're willing to share with us. So I can't give you an exact number, but I will get you the data on the 33 positive.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I wondered who pays for the testing for the employees who are opting for that, and do they do it on their own time?
They have to do it on their own time, and right now I think the state is still paying for the testing, but I believe it's very soon, the next week or two, it'll become the employee's responsibility to pay for testing. So they really are pushing to get everyone vaccinated. So they've made it so that's what your choice is, essentially.
The 17 employees that are non-compliant, are they no longer in their buildings? Or
Yes,
wherever they're working, they're home now?
That's correct. If you're not compliant, you can't come to work until you comply.
I just wanted to make sure that was clear, that's all.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I know it's a tough place to be, but we're just following the governor's mandate. Okay.
I just thought of another question. Of those 17 employees, what's the percentage of teachers or certified staff?
So I believe it's just 2 certified staff members in that. In the original mix of 22, right? Oh,
As of today, none of them were teachers. All of them are
okay,
non-certified
that's
staff.
great.
Thank you. That's good.
Yes, I mean, we don't want anyone to be non-compliant. We want them all to be available to come to work, but it is better, right, for us if it's non-certified versus certified, for obvious reasons. All right, any other questions? Okay, so then the next thing on my list for the superintendent's report is the NEASC information for the high school. You were sent both letters that NEASC has recently communicated with us. I don't know if there's any specific questions or follow-up on that. We are working with the high school team to address the recent letter, the one that just showed up on September 24th. And I actually have a meeting tomorrow at 8 o'clock, a Zoom meeting, with one of the NEASC members who actually is also the superintendent of E.O. Smith, Sharon. She is going to help me try to decipher exactly what they're expecting to see for a couple of the bullets that they've listed that we need to follow up on. I want to make sure that we provide NEASC with exactly what they're looking for so we can come off that special progress warning list. Any other questions about that? Okay, any questions about the staffing report that was included in the packet?
The people who are leaving? That report, the ones that have been transferred and that are leaving? I just want to say congratulations to the ones that got promoted.
Okay.
And sad to see the ones who have to go. We always have that. And they're probably leaving for more money.
Often that is the case. We're trying to fix that, but that is correct.
You know, at least we're trying to fix it.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, you know, it is concerning to see the numbers of people who've left. And I would, you know, I understand the financial piece, I mean, because that is, you know, always a concern, but I would like a sort of more concerted program of activities or things that we do about teacher recruitment and retention. You know, that's kind of always been on the
Yeah, and we're actually working to try to improve our whole onboarding process so that we're more responsive to the people that are coming into us and then that we're able to retain them. I can tell you that a lot of the people that are leaving, they do tell us that it has to do with their ability to drive 15 miles away and make $15,000 more. But that comes up a lot. I agree with you, though. It's not the only factor that makes someone want to stay or go, but it's definitely, you know, something that contributes to that. So I hope to produce for the board, and Stephanie and I have already talked about it. She'll be working on the formal recruitment plan that we'll share with you, but we are working on improving onboarding, retention, and, you know, recruiting. Another question?
Do we have any method of exit interviews, whether written or in person?
So, are you still conducting, how are we handling that part?
I actually have I'm putting together that new exit one because the one we had before didn't really give us enough information to have data. So I'm actually doing data points where they just answer the questions and not have to have like drawn out sentences because it didn't really give us the information we have. But I have the exit draft to actually provide to Tracy for her to look at, and then we'll start using it.
Any other questions on staffing? Oh.
Yeah, there was one of my pet peeves that we approve this report. Don't we have to approve the report? I don't see it as an action item.
I don't actually know that you have to approve the report. I know, Janet, you and I have had this conversation before. If you give me some history on it.
So, the board used to vote on the transfers and the designations and the hires. Then the board decided that since it stopped the workflow, since the board only met once, twice a month and once is an action item, that it was clogging up the workflow, and that since it all happened already, that they opted not to vote on it. So since then, we have not voted just incident.
So I'm open to however you want to move forward with it. I would say like trying to think about, obviously staffing is superintendent's responsibility. And as long as the staffing changes fit within the budget that's been approved by the board, it should be it shouldn't be something that has to be approved, but if the board decides that that's the way you want to go, we can figure out how to happen. Staffing is a superintendent
Right,
responsibility.
as I said, in the past, it's always been my pet peeve that we approve these months after they were actually
Sure.
in place, which became moot. But your document you gave us has personnel action for board approval on the top of each one of the pages, which brought it to mind. So I have no objection
Okay.
to not approving these because of the timing and the
Sure.
history. That's up to the boards, I guess, but
And-
you have
and
listed them as board approval.
You're right, it does say that at the top of the page. I apologize for that, because you're right, if you look at the dates, many of these things have happened weeks ago. So you'd be approving something that's in the past.
Yeah, I believe there may be something in the statute, I want to check that, but it's not that we would ever contravene anything about the hiring. It is something, though, that by law, I think boards are supposed to see, and the sort of approval is just to acknowledge that we've seen it.
Okay.
But-
I know there are positions that you are responsible for being a part of, positions in hierarchy, like our.
Well, this I believe administrative ones, but.
Okay. So we need to delve into how to move forward with this. And last on my superintendent's report was just, I gave you information about our district and school improvement plans. I have not finished providing feedback. They were just due, we just received them recently. But I don't know if anyone has any specific questions about the samples I provided. The goal is that they're all aligned to the strategic plan and that that it all should be linear. The district has a plan, strategic goals, each school has their strategic goals, each department in support of those goals. Then you have the teacher evaluation goals and eventually the student achievement goals. So it all should be linear, and we're working to get there. Sure. Any other questions? Okay. It's all you, Mary.
Okay, so we have committee reports next, and school planning and design, that's Tracy Lambert.
I had a conflict last week, so we couldn't meet, and today my fault, did not get the information to Janet early enough to post for tomorrow's meeting, so we're just gonna wait till next month.
Okay, thank you. Policy committee?
Yes, hello. So the district has prepared policy 5141.4, a protocol for reporting abuse and neglect. The board doesn't have to do anything with that. The committee, we met on 9/30, September 30th. I think it was 2 weeks ago tomorrow. The committee reviewed the policy breakdown from the attorneys, Shipman and Goodwin. The decision was made to have the responsible departments in the district review the policies and then report on their disposition to the committee, at which time the committee will make a recommendation to the board as to how to proceed with the management of the policy manual. And we just want to, the committee would like to thank Janet Testa for putting it together, for putting all the policies together after she got it back from Shipman and Goodwin. And she categorized it really nice, and it was very helpful for us, so thank you. The end.
Are there any questions for Ilda or Katina? Or Paul? Yeah. Yeah, I look forward to seeing the new manual, and thank you, Janet.
Right now it's in spreadsheet form. It will become a manual as soon as we go through by department.
That's a lot of work you've done in the last year, so. So now we will have the presentation of benchmark assessment data pre-K through 8 and district attendance data pre-K through 12.
That's correct. So Neil and I are going to go through the presentation. You all have a copy at your seats, so you take it with you. I tried to make sure that we were sort of making sure everyone on the board understands all the pieces that make up how we identify things like chronic absenteeism and what we use for our benchmarking system. We're going to go back and forth between the two of us in the presentation. We're open to, obviously, conversations, discussion about, anything you might have questions on, or if you just want to listen, that works too. So Neil, we're going to start. obviously, everyone can see the objectives of the presentation. Whoa. Man down, sorry about that. I'm going to have Neil kick us off with chronic absenteeism, one of his favorite things to talk about.
Yes, it is. So just for terminology, chronic absenteeism is a rate when students are out 10% of the membership days. For example, if a student goes to school 180 days and they miss 18, which is 10%, then they are chronically absent. A student, it says it right there. And then the reason I put the last bullet is because we'll show the chart at the end of September where we had less than 30 days so far. Because we're going to show you some September data. If a student missed 2 days or more, they're considered chronically absent so far. That rate changes as the year goes on, but we measure it every single month. Actually, we report out every week. April Chapam in the performance office goes ahead and does reports every week, and we track it to keep an eye on it. So those are two examples.
So in your packet, you'll see a pretty robust chart. It's also up on the screen there. This is the chronic absentee data for the district and for all of our schools. And we've highlighted or in bold the 2018-19 data as well as the current data, 21-22, because our goal is, and I know they could be lofty goals at this point because COVID has really set us back a bit, but our goal is to try to meet or exceed where we were in 2018-19. And we chose that year because that is the last year that did not have any kind of impact from COVID. So I'll let Neil walk you through this chart, but you also have it in your presentation if you have questions.
So basically it has the district, it lists all the schools, and then at the bottom WECC is sort of separate, so everyone knows we track our early childhood center. However, they're not responsible for towards chronic absenteeism as by the state, but we monitor it nonetheless in the district, so we report it here. Going back for September, again, remembering that these percentages just pick a kid being out or a student being out 2 or more days. So you could see the rates, what they were, prior to COVID in 18-19 and 19-20. You could see that in 2021, obviously much higher. And then this year, still very high, but a lot better than last year in most places. And as a district, we're about 7% less. I also think as the year goes on and our in-person continues, we'll see a perpetual decline and a closer to normal, because I think if we report this every couple of months, you're going to see maybe hopefully to 18-19 numbers, but it'll start to get closer to what it used to be. And then just to put into perspective, the end of the year, I left the previous 3 years what those rates were, and always too, just of note, early childhood usually has higher rates. I know those numbers are really high from last year, but usually when you have a little 3-year-old or 4-year-old, and especially during a pandemic, the cautions, are exponential. I see the person over there nodding at me, Aliki. So,
Living in the germ pool for the first time.
yeah, so that's during normal times, let alone like a pandemic. So that's just a generic overview of the data we have so far, but we do track this all the time.
The next slide just talks about some of the things the district continues to do to respond to attendance. Obviously, the most obvious is connecting with families and maintaining the kind of learning environments that make students want to come to school as often as possible. We have attendance teams and continue through attendance protocols. Our family liaisons are very helpful in this process. The high school has entered into a new program this year, one of Governor Lamont's programs called LEAP, another LEAP, a different LEAP from the other LEAP. This one actually trains our staff members to do home visits in hopes of developing some of those relationships that increase the high school kids' desire to be in school. So they have done a number of things at the high school to try to turn around their attendance. In September, many of the principals can attest to this. We had a focus on trying to connect with families, or students, I should say, that did not attend school initially. There were little celebratory emails going back and forth every time they found another student or another family that hadn't come to school. So they continue to track that. Obviously, any celebrations we can have for strong attendance practices will help students understand that we want them to be in school. Robinson and I, we're not going to officially announce this, but Robinson and I are going to be doing some community engagement videos, and attendance is one of the topics on our list. So you'll be hearing more about that. Yes, he's going to be a little bit of a movie star, so it should be good. More to come. More to come. We have been having discussions about how to utilize the ability for students to complete virtual work asynchronously when they're out for extended periods of time due to COVID. So, because we know that students who have to quarantine because of the close contact and who may not be sick, in most cases we know they're not getting sick, could potentially be completing their work, and we know the state has allowed, you can explain that, Neil, has allowed us to count certain things toward attendance if they complete, you want to?
Yeah, so the basic rule is if they're out on quarantine or isolation, schools they're not required to, but can, for example, if they do certain, like up to a half, they demonstrate some level of where they've done a half day's worth of work, whether on online platforms, complete assignments or submit assignments, similar to what we did last year for virtual students, but it's a little more restrictive, like because we're not allowed to do remote learning, so we're allowed to do that. We haven't really even we haven't really started to discuss with the principals yet, but we have the go-ahead. We're investigating it because it also requires things we have to do at the school level to make it happen. But it's a possibility that we can now do.
So more to come on that, but we're definitely focused on trying to make sure our kids are in school more often. Next part of the presentation deals with our benchmarking. Just for anyone who's interested, benchmarks are a way of gathering data to compare to a particular standard or goal. Our K-8 schools utilize iReady as their benchmark. Neil has done some correlations for us, and we know that prior to COVID, iReady was a fairly good indicator of SBAC success, so we like that assessment. We want to keep using it as a way to determine how our kids are going to do on the state assessment. Core Advantage is the benchmarking system used at the Early Childhood Center, and the high school is using the mini SAT and the PSAT as their benchmarking systems. So
just to say the PSAT was on there,
yeah.
Actually the high school gave their grade 9, 10, and 11 administration today of the PSAT. I saw a lot of happy kids about 4 hours into the school day when that test
when it was over, right?
Yeah, but they took it today.
Sure. So we'll start off with Core Advantage, WECC. So up on the screen in your presentation there is a list of areas or domains that are assessed by that particular test. And on the next slide, we have some just basic bullets about the Core Advantage, how our students are doing on it, and a comparison between the fall of 2019 and the fall of 2021. The percentages represent students at or above the target in each of those domains. So you can see in most cases, we were better off in 2019 than we are in 2021. I want to point out that it's not the same students being assessed, right? 2 years has passed, so they're not, those students in 2019 are not even in Aliki School anymore. But just to give you an idea of percentages at goal, in most cases we were better off 2 years ago. So I don't know if there's any specific questions for the Early Childhood Center. I'll just keep going. I can do that. Moving right along, K-8 math. This is just an overall data of all of the students, K-8, across the district. Again, a comparison of the fall of 2018-19 and the fall of this year, 21-22. And again, we were better off 2 years ago than we are right now. We recognize this. Obviously, we want to see more kids in the mid to above grade level, and even early on grade level, we want to increase those numbers versus having more students in the 1 grade below, 2 grades below, and so on. It's not far off. It's correct. Yeah, but it's noticeable enough. iReady and reading, same breakout. Again, these are all the students, just basic percentages of where they fall across those 5 categories. Again, not too far off, but it's good. Yeah, sure.
Only 10% of our students, or 11% in the year 18-19 were on grade level in these assessments? Or, no, 19% if I add them?
Sure, so this is, iReady, when they do the diagnostic, is actually set to the end of the year view. So it is trying to assess students based on where they would be at the end of that school year. So in some ways, it's deceiving, but yes, you're correct. If you take the two top categories and you add them together, those are the kids that are essentially on grade level. So in 2018-19, you have a total of 20% of the students who took this assessment would be on grade level, and in this year, 17% would be there. That's correct. Yes, it's certainly not where we want to be, Katina.
I want to cry.
Don't cry.
No,
We're-
no, I'm not going to cry, but, yeah,
Yeah, I agree. It's not okay, and we're certainly working on it.
thank you.
Okay, in your, at your tables, you have a packet, looks like this. It's just, we're gonna go over some assessment data with you. Basically, what this assessment data provides for you is, an overview of, each school's performance. The 5 categories that we showed you in general, K-8 for math and reading, this just breaks out those 5 categories by school. So you'll see there's 2018-19 data again, and then if you go a couple pages into the packet, so like on page 1 is the fall of 21-22, a diagnostic assessment in reading, and then if you go to page 3, you'll see the 2018-19 data by school. So you can potentially make a comparison to where schools will be. Again, not the same students being assessed necessarily, but it's just giving us an overall view of where students fall.
Is this on the same scale as the previous page you saw?
Correct.
Or above?
Yes, the 5 categories, correct. You're welcome. And the backside actually, I think, or the next page, I think, breaks that down. It shows you the categories and it shows you the domains in reading and in math as you move along. So it's a lot of information to share. It's one of those things that you could potentially just read it and then make yourself little notes off to the side and come back with questions. But I wanted to make sure you all had the ability to see the data and to understand that we are tracking it student by student. And we do believe we need to improve our performance.
I'm a little disheartened, right, with the fact that I'm a lot disheartened about the fact that they had to make basically all last year.
Yeah.
So they were behind and now they are triple behind or double behind
And so just for that reason, because it can be depressing when you look at the data and you think about how far we have to go with the students. So I'm not going to deny that. That's absolutely a truth for me as well. But Neil's going to present to you some SBAC data, and we're going to show you a comparison within our DERG to show you that, yes, we're not doing nearly as well as we can. We know that for certain, but we're certainly not the worst off of it. So we're going to show you that. So maybe you'll feel a little better in a minute. Any questions about the iReady data? Yes.
Yeah, just, I guess, I'm curious how our reading program that we spent the money on with new books targets with these areas that are weakness, like vocabulary versus phonological awareness or phonics. Are we on target with that program? How is it dovetailing?
You're talking about American Reading Company. Yes, the American Reading Company has a strong focus on students' independent reading skills and addresses all of these domains at a student's level, and then moving them closer to grade level if they aren't there. So I don't know if any of the principals want to speak out for American Reading Company, but I know they just had a leadership PD a few weeks ago. Are you asking specifically how in the program, or just in general, does the program address?
Well, I guess in general, and how. I mean, this data, as Katina's pointed out, is kind of disturbing. And I know we've spent the money developing the new reading program.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure the reading program is dovetailing with our needs as shown by these tests. That's what I'm asking.
Sure. I don't know if anyone wants to jump in. I know the new reading program has actually been just pushed up to the middle school, so I know they love it there, but at least at the beginning stages. I don't know if anyone wants to add anything specifically.
Art does align nicely. The other thing is, as
as we do our leveling, we were doing our leveling for our students. It is aligned to the iReady, so we're able to really see that the needs are equivalent from one to the other. We've had ARC in our building for a long time. We piloted in Compañeros, and we have seen great success with that program. And so it's a great resource, and our teachers use it, and our kids are really engaged and want to read. And really, last year was difficult. They did the best that they could, but I can see it again as they're in the building and want to be there and want to read. So I think as long as they show up, we'll get there. Thanks, Liz. Any other questions about iReady? Okay. As Neil mentioned, the high school is the final school to talk about before we get to Neil's little SBAC review. The high school did have a PSAT today. This says the PSAT data is expected back in approximately 2 weeks. I was completing the slide when one of the guidance counselors said to me that they had learned that the data was coming back in 2 weeks, even though I said to Neil, I don't think that's correct. And we've since confirmed it is not correct. The data will be back in 4 to 6 weeks. And obviously they'll go through the same process of conferencing with their students and setting goals. The high school seniors who did not come to school today had a virtual college tour assignment because they can't actually visit many of the colleges because of COVID. So they virtually visited the colleges and had a whole assignment of going through the colleges that they chose to view online. The mini SAT is a short assessment that's aligned to the SAT level of rigor that will begin in the high school in the beginning of November, and it's given each month. In addition to that, the Commissioners Network has embedded coaches focused on the SAT skills, as well as last links with specific departments at the high school. And the high school will once again offer Kaplan SAT supports starting later this fall and then again in the spring. So we are definitely focused on using the PSAT and mini SAT at the high school as our benchmarking tool. All right, on the very last 2 pages of your data packet, there's SBAC data, an SBAC analysis in math as well as in ELA. And I'm going to hand it over to Neil so that he can walk us through the SBAC analysis. The charts were too large to put on the screen, so you can just view them at your seats.
For your data viewing pleasure.
That's
Okay,
right.
so,
What do you call it, a data odyssey?
Data odyssey, yeah. Okay, so what I tried to do is when we received our SBAC data, this was, the purpose of looking at this first and foremost is just to put some context. I think last year is a tough year to make huge conclusions about any sort of performance, single performance point. And I think most people would agree with that. But I was just trying to make some sort of comparison to similar performing schools, how they did. So what we looked at is we compared 2018-19, the previous last time SBAC was taken by students in Connecticut, and then this past year, with a couple obvious important rules here. We only looked at in-person testing. There was a small percentage of students across the state that did remote testing that had different rules, and to be honest, it's just a different thing, and almost the state pretty much in all their documents said don't really compare both together. And since our district did just about virtually, no pun intended there, but basically all of our testing was in person, we just kept comparing in-person to in-person. So if you look starting at the top for ELA, we'll just start there, and you look at Connecticut, you will see that in 18-19, about a little over half the state was at level 3 or 4, which is considered benchmark. Then if you just go across, you see that that decreased about 6% last year when people were taking it. Now this includes all learning models, students that were in person all year, regardless of district, fully virtual students, and also that came in to take their test, or kids that, like in most cases in Windham, that were hybrid, right, with some virtual and some in person. So you could see there was a mild decrease. You could also notice there was a sizable difference in testing size. 40,000 students didn't disappear. It's impact of COVID and who tested, obviously. EL, which is our English learner population in Connecticut, you can see they took a decrease of, about 4%. Our HN, which stands for our high needs population, had a decrease of about 8%. FR, which is free reduced. Our district is 100%, we're a community eligible provision district, but we still have these traditional qualifiers of what percentage are free reduced lunch. The district dropped around about 7-8%, and our the SPED population was similar in the state. So what I did here, I did a little bit of digging, and I took the Durg I schools, which are district reference group. If anyone doesn't know, we're in there. It goes. Oh, look at you. Compared to Durg I, from A to I, we're in I, and we along with us is Waterbury, Hartford, New Haven, New London, New Britain, not Danbury. Wait. Oh, Bridgeport. Thank you. I could just read. Okay. So anyways, okay, going on. You could see there was about a 9-point drop for those students, and similar effects of the different subgroups. And then our data obviously is in the top and middle chart. And then so for Windham, when you took the in-person testing, you could see that we had about a 12% drop and in overall in ELA, and you could see the impact that we had on our subgroups. And as of note, because in the past, which was similar, typically Windham performs usually at the highest or towards the top in all grade levels in Durg I, and sometimes outperforms Durg H and G schools. I purposely wasn't trying to compare districts. As a matter of fact, the state release says this year you really shouldn't be comparing districts, which is why I just made one lump sum for Durg to give us some context. So I'm going to go on to math unless anyone has any questions. All right. And so, so when you look at this, and again, thinking of the context, you can see in the state, and this is true pretty much everywhere, math seemed to have a more significant drop than ELA. I don't know, this isn't really scientific, but as like it goes, if you know how to read, you don't unread things, right? You may not progress as fast enough, but with math, you can get gaps of knowledge, which really could quickly add up and have cause significant performance gaps. So anyways, you can see there was a greater gap in mathematics across the board in the state, similar gaps in the Durg, and it was pretty wide felt in Windham, as you could see, in all areas. So that is just to put in context. While we definitely are seeing some of, and I don't think the last of, the impacts of the pandemic and COVID, this is being felt everywhere in different places, but I wanted to at least compare it to how our Durg is feeling as well.
Any questions on SBAC? Again, it's a lot of information to take in.
Oh yeah. EL, just the code again is English learners.
Okay, that's all we have on benchmark and attendance data, unless there's further questions or discussion.
I say the state of Connecticut should not do tests, focus on the well-being of kids and advancing them as much as we can. Just saying.
Coming from a true social worker.
So will we move on to, we will revisit benchmarks.
Correct.
Board of Ed shared reading choice. Would you like to introduce that?
Sure. So in your packet, I gave you a quick little summary of the 3 possible books. First of all, I didn't actually hear back. I did get some feedback from you that was shared with me. But I didn't hear back from any other board members, so I don't actually know if everyone's even interested in doing this. So again, this was going to be a book that we would read together slowly, because we all have a ton of things to do. Maybe one chapter every few weeks, so that we could, develop a shared understanding of some of the things that make for high-performing Board of Ed and superintendent teams. So I did give you a summary in the packet of 3 potential books. I actually brought 2 copies of each book if you want me to pass them around so you can see them. If you are interested in doing this, then if you let me know which book might be a good one for us to choose, we can order one so everyone will have a copy, and we would start the reading after the new board was chosen at the beginning of December. So pass one of each one that way, and one of each one that way. Got it?
Now we're gonna read this to schools or?
No. This would be our own reading.
Like a book club.
Right, like a book club, and then we'd open up a Google Doc with some reflective questions, so that we could potentially get people to be thinking about what they're reading as we're developing ourselves as that super team. That's the goal. So,
Go ahead.
Personally, I would like to read the 5 Habits of High Impact School Boards. Just saying.
I think I just looked up the first one, since you recommended it, as your first choice. I do love the idea of, reading and discussing in a theoretical manner, what could make us a more effective board. Although I did express my concerns, to Lynn, my issue is, we are a board with a charge, and I'm afraid that as we get better and over time doing this reading, we're out of office or we're confronting a new problem. So, I just want to look at what's manageable and, for me, the teacher retention and recruitment is always a sort of thing. How can we face this? Will working as a team, obviously that would help us confront problems, but are there some more specific things we can do? So I would like to review all these choices, but I do have concerns about how I myself could keep up with this reading.
that's fair, I understand. So it's only October, so if we take some time to think about this, we can make a decision one way or the other.
Dr. Youngberg?
Yes.
I didn't respond because I thought we were just gonna discuss it tonight, but I did look them all up, and this was my first choice.
That was your first choice?
My
Okay,
first
good to know. So we have, all of them are good books, but, okay, we have a vote for 2 of them so far.
And I just, like Mary requests, we don't go too quick. I don't have time to read 6 chapters in, 2 weeks between meetings or something.
I'm with you on that one. That's actually a great question. I do so many of my books through Audible, so you're right. We could look into that as well. You can listen to it in your car.
I was actually thinking that maybe Neil could do a weekly podcast for us.
Well, and you know what? This could be fun, Mark. We could go with it.
Or a budding star.
Yes, so true. Some kind of role play. They could act it out for us. Yes, the drama. They could do a little drama skit after each chapter. I like it. We know, yes. We're well aware.
So anyway, we have plenty of time to think about it. I don't know if there's any other questions or thoughts. Looking forward.
Yeah, Paul?
Because it had a new board member. It had like a new board member kind of thing, and if we're gonna do this in December, it's good for them to kind of, Dr. Gomez didn't know the resources that CABE offered for continuing ed for board members and stuff like that. I think it would be important to make sure they have that information.
Speaking of which, we actually purchased as a district the packets that CABE offers for new board members. And first we just purchased potentially 5, thinking that there'd be at least 4 of you who remained. But then Lynn said, is it possible for us to purchase a packet for everyone? So we did that. So you'll all get one. So coming soon.
CABE swag. I think Paula had a comment.
I was just gonna say, I kind of think it's a great idea. I think it would give us some direction, an opportunity to really indulge in some discussion, constructive discussion. So I'm for it. As to which book, your comment about that first one, giving us actual opportunities to, I can't remember exactly how you put it, but I thought that was a great idea.
Okay.
Did you have a comment, Ilda?
No, I didn't. I just looked up.
All right, so we'll think about this and look up, the copies of the books here, and also, obviously, I guess we can look online for see which one gets the most thumbs up. That's the academic way to do. I'm just kidding. So we are moving on to action items, and we have am I on the right track here? Okay. I need some training, but approval of acceptance of a donation from Staples of school supplies in the amount of $3,480. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, and we have the information here. Shall I read the background, or do we need to know? It's
Just a big thank you.
It's a big thank you, and the middle school students will be grateful. So, are we ready to vote on that? All in favor?
Definitely.
Opposed? Abstentions? It's unanimous. Next action. My fingers stopped. Is the approval of the acceptance of a sponsorship donation made by the U.S. Army. Army recruiters have offered to be a Windham football sponsor for $1,500. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Thank you.
All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, now we have that the board approved the acceptance of a donation of $2,000 from the Woodman Life New York, New England Jurisdictional Family Camp. This sounds really great. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Paula moved. Will you second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. And this has to do with helping with hotspots, Chromebooks, and other supplies for students. So, all in favor?
I was
Oh.
gonna ask, who is Whitman Light, New England Jurisdictional Family Camp? Like, I have never heard about it, in Windham or anything like that.
Yeah, see? So I actually received an email on behalf of Miss Ray, actually a couple of weeks ago, that this organization wanted to donate to us. So I will gladly turn over the mic back over to her, because I was literally just the principal accepting it.
So it was, one of the women, I think she's the chairperson of that committee. Her son was in the middle school in 2019, so she saw the need and decided to have her organization help out. So, that's it. And she's a friend of NAACP. I was just a connector. I connected the dots.
Any other questions? Okay, we're gonna vote. All in favor? Abstentions? Okay, I think everyone voted. Our last action item is, and you have this, you got this in an email, which was the approval of the superintendent's evaluation letter. Any comments and edits were already made, so I guess I would entertain a motion to accept the superintendent's evaluation letter.
Second.
Katina moved, second by Mark. Any discussion?
Dr. Yever, have you seen this letter?
I have.
And you have no problems with it?
I have no problems with it. I was actually grateful, but I think you wrote it.
I wrote some of it. It's been
Yeah.
changed a little bit since then, but I wrote
thought
some
it
of it.
was
I thought it was fair and even.
Absolutely fair.
There's criticism on both sides and room to grow, but we've done some good things over the past few years, especially with the challenges we've been
Well, and that's
faced
how evaluation's supposed to be, right? Strengths and next steps, always. That's the way you're supposed to look at it, so I appreciate the letter.
with. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? And this will go up on the website somewhere. It's the public version of the evaluation. So we're ready to vote. All in favor? Abstentions? What's the last one? Negatives? No, it's unanimous. All right, let's see. There is now public comment.
Yeah,
Nobody
just my
popped up.
team.
for public comment.
Can I just say a little thing? The Task Force to Prevent Child Abuse and Neglect, thank you very much for inviting us, and we donated 5 car seats to the preschool. Because there were parents actually that very day that didn't have car seats for the kids, and we wanted to prevent accidents.
That's great, thank you.
Thank you.
Tomorrow morning is the groundbreaking for the high school, in front of the high school, for anybody who wants to attend. You'll see most of us out there wearing, what, no? It's not happening?
But I don't think it's open to the public.
It's definitely happening. We're concerned about inviting the entire public because of, there's no space to put anyone because of the giant construction
Okay,
machines.
then
and
don't
the-
come.
No, no.
Look for it in the Chronicle or something, I'm sorry.
We've invited up, we think we've invited everyone who's been a part of the process along the way, and, I have a little program that I can pass around so you can see, but we didn't want to open up to the public because we're not sure where to put everybody. I don't know if you've driven by, have you driven by the high school lately?
I have.
With the giant blue, yeah, it's a big mess with the cranes and backhoes and all sorts of things.
Yeah, Facebook went crazy, like, what are they doing? There's no parking, there's this, there's that. I'm like, we've been talking about this since we passed it in 2017, people.
Sure.
I just want to say thank you also for inviting as many people who have been involved in the past by councils, etc. That was very nice. Thank you, Janet and Robinson.
We all helped get it passed in 2017.
Big effort. Looks like next we have a non-meeting. So I don't know if that means anyone not involved has to leave.
That is what it means, absolutely. I know you're heartbroken.
I'm just great, guys.
Is it like moving into executive session? Do we have to move into a non-meeting?
Yes, we have to.
Yeah, there's a formal
Make a
move.
motion to move into a non-meeting to discuss secretarial and maintenance union contract changes.
Thanks
I
for
think it's so
coming.
funny.
Grace.
Second.
Thank you.
Enjoy all your
Oh,
presents.
all in favor of moving into a non-meeting? Thank you.